Okay, so the class is being recorded. And let me also share the slides. And my screen is also shared. And here are the slides that I have been talking about. Okay, so can you see that? Can you see the slides, everyone? No.
Yes, it's clear.
If why are you not talking?
Yes, Victor.
Bismillah. So again, this is a continuation of what we have started over the past 2 weeks. It was all about Cleopatra. We're not interested in Cleopatra the way history department people are interested. I mean, we're developing different skills, and the skills that we're developing are English major skills, the analysis, checking the reliability of a source, making those distinctions primary and sources. Um, so these are the skills that we're developing together. Okay, so there has been a great deal of talk about Cleopatra and who Cleopatra is and how perceptions of Cleopatra and her character developed and differed over the years. Again, most of the knowledge that we have of Cleopatra have one single side or source, which is the Roman side of the story. For obvious reasons by now. We spoke about Roman sources, and we said that why Roman sources predominated and were always there for people to pick up and read from. We said that we're talking about the Roman Empire being in full swing at its heyday during the time. We spoke about the literacy, the fact that as a young empire, the Roman Empire was, for the most part, an educated empire. They people were civilized, and they also had access to books. The system of education, where the book is at the core, is obviously a Roman and a Greek invention, and not an Egyptian invention. And that would explain why we don't have sources on the Egyptian side. The Egyptian side had their way of communicating ideas and expressing themselves and glorifying their rulers and queens and kings. And it was all through statues, temples where, there are portraits of their queens and kings and pharaohs inscripted and engraved on those temples. So again, it seems that we're having a one-sided view of Cleopatra. And if we have a one-sided view of Cleopatra, which is obviously the Roman view, this is not reliable. This is not to be trusted. You have to take what the Romans and their sources are saying with a grain of salt. You just need to stop and think whether what you're reading is reliable, whether you agree with it, from a commonsensical point of view. Also, you normally use your power of reason in order to judge things. So one big takeaway from this chapter would be the idea that you don't take things for granted. You need to challenge sources. You need to check whether those sources are reliable or not. Reliable in the sense that they give you different views and different angles of vision. And this is something that we don't have with Roman sources. They are one-sided, and they are influenced by lots of things. I mean, remember, Roman sources were written by men, males, and obviously males have issues with females. So if they are talking about females, so they might be biased. Those sources were also written from or through the eyes of enemies. Obviously, they were the Roman historians and poets and literary figures were enemies to Cleopatra, so you don't expect them to say very beautiful things about Cleopatra and her people, and this is what we have seen. Again, they are politically different. I mean, remember I said that the Romans lived in a republic, and republic means that they have democracy, they have elected officials, they have a parliament. Cleopatra and her people are not. They live in a kingdom, and kingdoms are not ruled in a democratic way normally, where you have the king or the queen, kind of ruling for life. So the Roman historians were fearful of the fact that should Cleopatra, when she would change their system of government into a dictatorship. So they have obviously every reason to portray her the way they did in very negative terms. Remember? So we've been talking about Cleopatra for quite some time. We're talking about the impressions and the perceptions that have been forming over the years. But who was Cleopatra historically? That would also bring us to a very controversial and a very debatable point, the idea of Cleopatra's origin. Was she purely Egyptian or was she purely Greek? And why is this Greekness not highlighted by Roman historians? Again, so it should be noted that in the study of Cleopatra, there is an emphasis on the Romans' point of view. Again, for obvious reasons, because there were no narrative histories or biographies of Cleopatra written by ancient Egyptians. If we had the Egyptian side of the story, we could have set the two stories together and came up with a more perhaps informed assessment of the character of Cleopatra. So most of the sources that we have are Roman sources, and this is obviously a problem. So what do the Egyptians, what do they provide us with? So if they don't give us histories or books to read from, what do they give us? They give us material evidence in the form of statues, inscriptions, and coins. And obviously, these things are not easy to access. Remember, I told you that if you have a book, no matter how big the book is, it is something that you can read from the convenience of your home, for example, or in a library. So you don't go very far away in order to read something. But when I talk about statues, when I talk about inscriptions on temples and walls, these are obviously things that are not easy to go to and access, and that would make Roman sources prevail and become more accessible and more current. And that would explain why Roman sources um, are read more than any other sources. Again, we have obviously a multiplicity of sources, lots of sources. Um, and because of the contradictions that you may get, and because of the fact that those sources may be conflicting and may be uh, not very accurate, Cleopatra became a legend. So she turned from an actual historical figure to a legend. You know what a legend is? She became a mythical figure. And with myth and legendary, people suspend their disbelief. People add and exaggerate. So the real human flesh and blood Cleopatra becomes legendary and becomes out of our realistic proportions, and that would become a problem because there is no way that you can know about the real Cleopatra if her life is mixed and confused with legend. Uh, again, um, because of the so many sources that we have, that because of Cleopatra becoming more of a legend than a flesh and blood human being, we have this aspect of her character where people are saying that she is, um, not totally Egyptian, like I said. The fact that she is a member of a Hellenic or a Greek elite. So she was, let's say, half Egyptian, half Greek. Um, Even her name doesn't sound too Egyptian. So that Cleopatra was the last ruler of the last dynasty of the pharaohs of Egypt, the Ptolemies. So she was both Egyptian, she was a pharaoh, and she was a member of the Ptolemy family. And the Ptolemies is a dynasty. Dynasty means a royal family that has a history, that has a line of descent. She was the last, and actually, she was. Um, there were lots of Cleopatras from this Ptolemy's family, and that Ptolemy's origin would link her to Greek and to the Greek civilization. So if she's Greek, if she's half Greek, it means that she has affinities with the Romans. Okay, and this is the part that the Romans were trying to underplay and downplay. They never spoke about the fact that she is partly Greek, because people are going to claim them. Why are you waging wars against her? Against her? Why are you, starting smearing campaigns against her, tarnishing her reputation, saying that she is a seductress and she is this and that. If she is half Western and half Greek. Okay, so the Ptolemies were not native Egyptians, but rather descendants of one of the generals, Ptolemy, of Alexander. Alexander the Great, of course, came, immediately after the Greek civilization came to an end. He is a continuation of the Greek line. He was an amazing leader and general, and he conquered half the world. So he didn't live long enough to perhaps enjoy what he did. He caught a very severe fever and he died in the process. So when he died, the people who worked with him, the other generals, started to kind of divide the colonies over themselves. And the leader, Ptolemy, had Egypt as his share of this kind of positions, imperial positions that they had. He went to Egypt and he ruled Egypt and started a very long line of kings and queens over there. So as you can see, Cleopatra is not totally Egyptian, okay? So he went and his family lived there, and then came, different generations of the Ptolemies. And of course, if you live 200 or 300 years in one country, it becomes your country. So it is true that she has Greek and Hellenic blood in her, but she is also Egyptian. Again, our problem is that this is not highlighted in Roman sources. You never see Roman historians speak about this Greek part in Cleopatra's character or plot. And again, this was also a maneuver or a strategy. They didn't want to highlight this part because the reader would have some kind of sympathy towards Cleopatra. He would say that she is, one of us. Why are we saying what we're saying about her and stuff? Why aren't we even proud of the fact that we have a Greek ruling Egypt? So like all the Ptolemies, Cleopatra was both a pharaoh and a Hellenistic or Greek monarch. Monarch means a king or a queen. So where did she live? When Alexander the Great came to Egypt and conquered Egypt, he created and established the city of Alexandria. And the city of Alexandria was a great metropolis, a great civilized city. And it has very beautiful architecture, and it has we still have remnants of this kind of civilization. We still have this famous lighthouse, which is one of the wonders of the ancient world. You still have the Alexandrian library, which is famous, and they have even revived it, and it still has this kind of appeal to people from all over the world. So the bottom line would be that Alexandria was even more advanced than Rome itself. So it was more urban and more sophisticated and intellectually refined than Rome. Again, this is something that the Romans are not going to talk to us about, are not going to mention. Remember, they focus on Egyptians as being, worshippers of reptiles, people who practice witchcraft, but they never talk about Alexandria and the intellectual and cultural influence of Alexandria. According to them, Egypt and Alexandria, I'm talking about the Romans and the Roman sources. According to them, Egypt was alien, was debased, and they never referred to the fact that the Ptolemies were of Greek descent. Egypt at the time of Cleopatra was the most populous means the biggest in terms of population, the most populous country in the Mediterranean basin, and it had great wealth and resources. Again, but if you still remember, we said that there were infighting and civil wars, and that made Egypt a power in decline. Again, the focus with the Romans would be to downplay this great part in Egyptian history, and kind of highlight those negative aspects, speaking about Cleopatra as a destructive sexual predator, speaking of that Egyptians as primitive and debased and all these kinds of things. So again, that would lead us to the conclusion that those sources, those Roman sources, are biased and prejudiced, and they are one-sided and as such unreliable. You wouldn't rely on them in getting what is honest and what is truthful. This is about Julius Caesar, the Roman leader, and Cleopatra, and if anything, it tells you about Cleopatra as being a very astute, a very intelligent leader in the making, because she was very young. Again, what is being hidden is the idea that perhaps Cleopatra was trying to create alliances. And obviously in war, like they say, everything is possible. She was obviously utilizing the fact that she has this appeal among men, the fact that she was beautiful. But she was taking advantage of that in order to create and form and forge alliances, political ones. So the idea that she was a mere sexual predator need to be reconsidered. Perhaps she was doing that as a maneuver. She was using that as a tactic and as a strategy. I mean, winning the hearts and the minds of those Roman leaders and rulers would have spared Egypt in destruction and invasion and all these kinds of things.
Doctor?
Yes.
Doctor, sorry to interrupt you, but I have many questions.
Okay, go ahead.
أنا كنت محولة من الأستاذ محمد الغامدي للسكشن تبعكم، فهذه تعتبر لي أول محاضرة. والأسبوع اللي فات كان يوم الربوع إنه المفروض يعني لازم أحضر مع الأستاذ محمد، بس كان بسبب الإجازة المطولة ما حضرت، اتلغت المحاضرة. فهذه تعتبر لي أول محاضرة معاكم أنتم. كيف المحاضرة تبع الشابتر، يعني تكملة الشابتر الأولاني فين ألاقيها؟ وكيف
لاقيها
اللي فيها حضور ولا غياب ولا كيف؟
ما فيش
ولا
مشكلة.
أحضرها بكرة؟
يا أنت ادينا فرصة بقى نرد عليه. What's your name?
طيب تفضل.
What's your name?
روان.
روان what?
روان صالح عربي.
ماشي يا روان، أنت هتحضري معانا عادي، خلاص ما فيش أي مشكلة.
أنا حاولت إنه خلاص معاكم أنتم.
طيب الحمد لله، احنا سعداء ان انت موجوده. ما خلينا نكمل بقى الفكره عشان نكمل.
طيب تفضل.
الفكره بالنسبه للمحاضرات هي مسجله وموجوده على LMS، المحاضرتين السابقتين. ماشي يا جماعه. let me just يعني برضو alert you to the fact that we also have recordings of past semesters. You can also utilize them and use them. They are all يعني as fresh as it gets, like they say. But you can use all of them. Like I said, recordings of this semester are also posted on the LMS. Mine and also those of Dr. Julie. ماشي يا روان, is that clear?
أيوة يا دكتور، بس معلش كان بدي أسأل، المذاكرة من فين بتكون بسلايدات ولا من الكتاب؟ لأن المادة
your starting point is the book، وبعدين slides can organize your thoughts. ترجعي للسلايدز من بعد ما تقري الشابتر.
طب أنا أول مرة أدرس مادة أدب، يعني معلش إيش بنذاكر فيها؟ ما أدري هي زي القصص ولا ما عارفة كيف.
نتكلم على الجزء دوت بعدين عشان ما نبقاش يعني ما نضطرش نقطع الجزء ده، فعشان يبقى في تسلسل في الكلام. خلينا we're going to cover this part at the end of the class. Just remind me towards the end of the class, we can always talk about how people can approach the material, inshallah. Okay, so it's Cleopatra, everyone. We're trying to locate Cleopatra in history, and we're saying that there is a great deal that we don't know about Cleopatra. This was hidden, obviously, deliberately by the Roman sources. The fact that she is not purely Egyptian, the fact that she is also of Greek descent, part of her makeup is Greek, and the fact that she is a member of the Ptolemies, and the Ptolemies are known in history as originally Greek or Hellenic or Hellenistic. Again, we're talking about this part of Egyptian civilization that is not also mentioned in Roman sources. The fact that at the time, Egypt, and specifically Alexandria, was the center of the world, in the sense that they had this huge and great library. They had learned people, and they were very educated. This is not highlighted for obvious purposes in Greek and Roman sources, because they wanted to say that the Egyptians are not, as are not educated, or are not as educated as the Romans, and they are barbarian and all these kinds of things. Again, we're here talking about also something that Roman sources do not tell us about, the idea that there is more to Cleopatra than portraying her, or just portraying her as a sexual predator, somebody who is disruptive of peaceful households, somebody who is interested in material and in sexual pleasures and full of stuff. Obviously, there is more to Cleopatra than just that. Cleopatra, the politician, was a big deal. And there is this theory that she did, that she did what she did. I mean, falling in love with those people. We may look at it as falling in love, but perhaps if you think about it, and at hindsight, you may think of it as being a political strategy. She did what she did in order to forge alliances with those Roman generals, because she knows, or she knew, that her country is not in its best shape. The country was deteriorating. There was a civil war. She had this issue of control with her brother. Her brother is obviously trying to take the throne. There is a great deal of familial killing. So she wanted people who are strong and powerful on her side, and she wouldn't have thought of better people than Julius Caesar and, of course, Antony. So this was, having those love affairs, if we consider them love affairs, were not simply whims on her part, but a matter of both political expediency and self-preservation. Otherwise, she could have been killed by her brother, like he did with her sister, and she could have disappeared. So she, by having those affairs, she wanted to create alliances, and those alliances promised to bring stability to the region and to restore the power of Ptolemaic Egypt. And then we move to Cleopatra and how she saw herself. Um, This is again very, um, I don't know. Cleopatra did something that politicians of now are doing. She came. She is or she was a pioneer in that. She wanted people to see her the way she wanted them to see her. So she geared their impressions and images and views of her in a certain direction. How? She wanted them to remember her as what? To recognize her as what? To remember and recognize her as somebody who is um, from Egypt, somebody who is somehow connected to the great pharaohs of Egypt. And she didn't also ignore or overlook the fact that the time was a Roman time where Rome was in control. She wanted also to appeal to the Romans. Okay, so how could she do that? How could she appeal to the Egyptians and how could she appeal to the Romans at the same time? Remember, there were no books, there were no Egyptian historians that are going to write books about and on her. This was out of the question. So she made sure that people look at her the way she wants them to look at her through coins, through statues and sculptures, which present images of her. So it's very important to consider these images because through them we gain a greater insight into how Cleopatra wanted others to see her. Again, we're talking about others. Those others are Egyptians, the Egyptians, and also the Romans. If you go all the way to page 19, figure 103, I would like, if you have the book handy, I would like you to go there. By analyzing figure 103, page 19, um, we see the importance of Cleopatra's position. Let me go with you there and see what we have. You this one. Okay. So what do you think of this image? Don't look at the details yet. What do we have? Let's unpack the image itself. And don't read whatever is under. So this gives you the impression of what? Where are we? Where are you likely to see an image like this?
Ancient Egypt.
Yeah, in Egypt, right? So this
Yeah.
is ancient Egyptian inscriptions. This is more or less like a wall, and it's not just another wall. People are inscribing and engraving things on the wall, and this is a typically Egyptian habit, right? Do we have things like that in other cultures? Yes, we have things like that in other cultures, but on a very small scale. Egyptians are popular and famous for that, right? Okay. Let me tell you, can we recognize the people on the picture? Of course, it would take some knowledge of Egyptian history, but you can see figures, you can see people inscribed and engraved. Can you see them?
Yes.
I can
Oh,
see two women
yes. Okay. Good.
and one man, I guess, or two.
Yes, that's interesting. Okay. So normally, who are normally engraved and inscribed on those walls? Would you have somebody from the street, just another individual,
The
or
king and
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
the king and the queen.
Yeah, people, yeah, high profile people, not just anybody, right? And why?
I
Why would, yeah, go ahead.
I think it's the Queen of Egypt and the Romans.
I'm not to, and I'm asking generic questions now. I'm saying that you don't have, is it, yo, what's wrong? I'm sorry. By the way, it's silent, but some applications somehow, oh, okay, fine. Again, is it expensive to have thimbles like these to inscribe things? It takes what?
Yeah.
It
Yes.
takes,
Time,
it takes time, it takes talent, it takes
effort.
money, of course, and effort, right? Okay, right. Um, let me just tell you that one of the figures is inscribed over there is Cleopatra. Okay, and one of the figures inscribed there is her son, Caesarion. Okay, and you need to remember that those inscriptions were made at the request and at the orders of the queens and the kings. This is a huge project that you cannot start on your own. If you're a talented individual, you can't just go and build a temple and then you start inscribing and engraving, right? This has state sponsorship. Somebody uh, in high place has to sponsor that. Okay, so who is the sponsor? Obviously, it's Queen Cleopatra herself. Okay, so what kind of message is she? So the message here, if she is ordering, artists to kind of engrave and inscribe something like this for her, who is she targeting? This is done for whom? She wants that for whom? She's speaking to whom? She's giving or sending messages to whom? To the Romans?
Not to her people.
To her people. She's trying to say what?
That
She's trying.
she is in control.
She's in control. Yeah. Um, and perhaps she's trying to say that I am as Egyptian and as everybody else. Remember, she has this disputed origins. People are saying that she's partly Greek, but by ordering herself to be inscribed and engraved like that, she is trying to tell Egyptians what? She's trying to gain and win and earn legitimacy. You know what legitimacy is? Sharia. Yeah. She's saying that I'm a legitimate queen or ruler of the land. Please mute your mic. Okay, are you getting the idea? So she's creating those, or she's ordering people to create those temples on which she is engraved and inscribed in order to tell people that I am a pharaoh, like all the other pharaohs that you had in the past. She's trying to link herself to ancient Egyptian tradition, right? And obviously, she's addressing the Egyptians, right? Okay, so this is something we understand. Why? Why would she include her son? Remember, one of the people is very short. Can you see this short individual? Can you see that? You see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So why? My question is why? Why she is also including him here?
I think so. She tell her people to respect him.
I got to honor him. She knows that eventually
Yes,
she's
of
going
course.
to die, right? And who's going to inherit her? Who's going to inherit the throne?
Her son.
Her son.
Her son,
Okay.
of course.
So she's
Yeah.
giving him legitimacy too, right? She's trying to introduce him. This is your future king, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So where do we have that? Do we have that in Alexandria? No, this is not Alexandria, right? Is it Cairo? And I wasn't consulted? No, Cairo was not even invented or created, right? So this is where? So this is in Hathur. This is the temple. The temple is called the Temple of Hathur at Dandara in, southern Egypt. Okay, so a portion of the relief sculpture on the southern exterior wall of the Temple of Hathur at Dandara in Egypt. Do we have Egyptians here? Have you ever been to Aswan and Luxor in Egypt? You don't have.
I'm
You don't have to be
Egyptian.
Egyptian. Okay. What's your name?
أنا رغد.
Ragad, have you ever been to mute your mic, man. So have you ever been to Luxor and Aswan and all those places?
No, I have never been there.
Okay. Anybody else? Like I said, you don't have to be Egyptian to know about that or to go there, right? So have you ever been to Egypt, to southern Egypt, where, it's obviously an open museum in Luxor and Aswan? Have you ever been there?
No.
Okay, not yet. Let me put it this way. So like I said, this is inscribed and engraved on the southern exterior wall of the Temple of Hathor at Dandara in the south of Egypt. Okay, and here you have very detailed description of what she wears and how what she wears is linking her to the ancient Egyptian civilization. She makes sure that her hair is buckled in a certain way because that would look like ancient Egyptians and all these kinds of things. And then we move on to that. What do we have? These are what?
This is coin.
Coins. Yes. Mute your mic, Malish. One of them is Cleopatra and the other is obviously Antony. What is so different about those coins? Remember, one of them is also of Cleopatra. So Cleopatra is here. Look at Cleopatra here. And then look at the coins. By having also her image minted on a coin. Coins were Roman or Egyptian inventions. What do you think?
I think Roman.
Roman and Egyptians.
I don't believe that when she came, she started them. Yeah, but this is obviously at the time was a modern invention, something that ancient Egyptians didn't know of. So if I tell you that this idea of coins is a Roman invention, so who is she addressing?
Romans.
The Romans, right? And even the way she is minted, and the way she is portrayed on those coins is different. She doesn't look the way she looked on those ancient Egyptian temples, right? Okay,
Yes.
so again, she is trying to appeal to the Romans here. Okay, this is also, her head. Ancient Egyptians do not normally have, independent or separate, heads like this. And here she looks what? What color is her skin?
White.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this. Normally, and that would apply to even modern day Egyptians. Do Egyptians look that, fair? I mean, she's almost blonde or fair, if I'm not mistaken. Do Egyptians look this way? I mean, even modern day Egyptians. Of course, we have exceptions. You can have people who are very whitish, very blondie, and everything. I'm talking about the rule, not the exception. Does she look Egyptian to you? Given what you know about the Egyptians in terms of how they look and stuff. What do you
No.
think? No. So, and also the idea of having heads like this is obviously not Egyptian, because you know how heavy-handed Egyptian architecture is, and it's also part of temples, and sometimes they would create, lions and right. So this is also appealing to whom?
Appealing to the Roman.
Romans.
The Romans, yeah, again. So what do you think of her this way? If this is how she wants people to look at her, to see her. Again, she is moving between Egyptians and Romans. What does tell you about her character?
He's strong. Strong.
Yeah, strong and smart. In terms, if we talk about politics, she is very obviously very smart, a very smart ruler, right? She wants you to understand and appreciate her in a certain way. So it wasn't all about this, physical attraction that everybody's talking about. The fact that she's trying to appeal to those generals in a physical way and full stop. Now, obviously, she was also very careful about how people look at her and see her. And obviously, they look at her and see her this way in a political way. She wants them to always remember that she is the queen of the land. She is the legitimate queen of the land. She is Egyptian, and she is as Egyptian as it gets. And she is also Western or Greek because of the affinities to the Greek, the fact that she comes from the Ptolemies, and the Ptolemies came from ancient Greece. Again. Okay. Let's go to the slides. So Cleopatra left behind objects and coins, statues, and sculptures, which present images of herself. So by analyzing figure 1.3, which we did on page 19, which is a relief sculpture on the southern exterior wall of the temple of Hathur, or Hathur at Dandara in Egypt, we see the importance of Cleopatra's position. Again, there is a great deal of talk about this grand architecture. It shows Cleopatra embracing the ancient traditions of Egypt. She is impressing on everybody that I am as Egyptian and as ancient Egyptian and as Pharaoh as everybody else. She appears in a timeless portrait as an integral cog in the line of the pharaohs. She also displays herself as a dutifully providing a link between the divine and the human world. So in this way, she's trying to show and express her adherence to Egypt's past. Again, and she's also using this past to stress her own authority and legitimacy, the fact that she is the rightful ruler of the land. Again, I told you that she also included Caesarion, again, in order to tell people that this is your future king, and he also has the same authority and the same legitimacy. So if what we see at Dandara on the temple is a static display of Cleopatra's allegiance to Egyptian tradition, we have the coins, and obviously the coins would, because they are small and they are mobile and you can circulate them easily. So obviously she is trying to reach beyond Egypt. So it's Egyptians because they are going to use them, and everybody else, including the Romans, of course. So in the coins, Cleopatra is represented very much in the manner of a Hellenistic or Greek queen, in terms of her hairstyle and hairband and the pearl necklace, which reinforces the projection of power. So the coin portraits are very much in the Roman style of portraiture of the day, known as verism, that tries to project powerful and striking individuality. So this was intended, the coins were primarily intended for the audience of the Roman Empire. Again, she is presented on the coins as strong and forceful, again, because the Romans at the time used to believe that Egypt is weak, is a defeated country and culture. So by presenting herself on the coins as strong and forceful, she's trying to say, I am the female counterpart to the Roman general Mark Antony. If he's strong, I am also an equally strong. If he is powerful, I am also an equally powerful. Which means that she is worthy of the alliance with Rome and with the rulers of Rome, like Mark Antony. So as you can see, the least you can say about Cleopatra is that she has been a shrewd, very clever, a shrewd manipulator of public opinion and a skillful promoter of her own image. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes,
Okay, so we come to the idea of reassessment. Reassessment, we have an initial assessment of Cleopatra, an initial impression and evaluation of the character of Cleopatra. This initial or or those initial views and impressions are based on Roman sources. And of course, the Roman sources focused on the negative aspects in the character of Cleopatra, her behavior. And of course, they had their own biases and their own prejudices, and we spoke about all of that. Now that we have seen this, the second part of the story, the Egyptian part, the Cleopatra part, we are in a better position to come up with our own conclusions about the character of Cleopatra. So my question is whether you still believe that Cleopatra is a mere sexual predator, somebody who is only interested in spending nice time with men and playing with them and all of that. Do you think there is more to the character of Cleopatra than just that, given what we know about her now? What do you think? Let me first of all speak to people. I mean, see how people thought of Cleopatra before we went that far, and then see whether those views changed, those perceptions changed or not. When the name Cleopatra dropped at the beginning, what were the associations of Cleopatra according to you? Was she you thought of her as being, like I said, a sexual predator, a good-for-nothing queen, somebody who is more into fun and playfulness? Was that the image that you had of Cleopatra before we started?
No.
How? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, when we first talked about Cleopatra, I thought of her as beauty figure more than anything else.
Yeah, so it's again, you're subscribing to the old image, to the Hollywood image, right?
Yeah.
Which would reduce Cleopatra to a mere beauty, a mere beautiful individual. So we're this way we're indirectly excluding the fact that she can have a shrewd mind, that she can be a political manipulator, she can, right? We're focused on her physical beauty, which is obviously not doing her justice. Let me ask you whether you have changed your mind about her or not. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Jasim.
Jasim, go ahead.
I didn't know that she was the last pharaoh or the last ruler of Egypt.
Why? Why didn't you know, Jasim?
I didn't know before the class.
Yeah, I'll tell you why you didn't know. Because the Roman sources that we've been talking about never mentioned that aspect of her history or career, right? They never spoke about her being partly Greek, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you have a source that is hiding something as important, how would you call this source? Would you call it
Biased?
biased? Excellent. Obviously, far away from being objective.
Correct.
Far from being reliable. You wouldn't rely on it, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
Can we have somebody else? Initial impressions about Cleopatra, and now whether you have changed, whether you have a change of heart about Cleopatra, given what we said about her. Anybody else? Okay. But even if you don't have initial impressions about Cleopatra, good or bad, let's make an assessment of the character of Cleopatra. Now you have different sources. You have the Roman sources, and you now have how Cleopatra wanted herself to be presented, and how she was presented from the perspective of Egyptians. So what do you think of the character of Cleopatra? Is she still a mere physical predator or sexual predator? Or there is more to her character than just that? There is more to her than just that.
More to her character.
Yeah, okay. So there are aspects in her character that were deliberately hidden from us. The fact that she is a political manipulator, the fact that her relationships with those Roman generals were not just because she loves fun and happy times, and no, she was um, by being linked to them, she was trying to kind of forge political alliances. She knows that her country is weak, and she knows that she cannot afford being in war or in wars against those powerful rulers. She decided that she can take advantage of her physical beauty, obviously. Okay, we have again, everybody is now, I mean, the interpretation or interpretations of the character of Cleopatra is up for grabs. Now that we have other sides of the story, we now um, even have Africans claiming Cleopatra for themselves, thinking of Cleopatra as an African queen who is not given fair hearing and fair treatment because she's African, and Africans down through history have been ill-treated. This is how they look at it. So the work on Cleopatra is never likely to be definitive or finished. And every day we can have new interpretations of what she did, and also how she did what she did, and also her origins. Um, so as a powerful historical female figure from the African continent, remember Egypt is in Africa, Cleopatra is always likely to remain a controversial figure. Controversial means that people are polarized and divided over her. Some people, like I said, are giving her credit for what she did, and some other people are demonizing her. They are making a demon or a devil of her. There is an academic trend in the academic circles in Western and also in African universities, where they have started a debate on Cleopatra and the fact that she is African to the core, and she should be projected and presented as an African queen who has been treated very badly by historians. Again, because she is African, because she is not white, because she's not Christian, because she is not Western. So, and this is the trend, this trend of, everything of saying that everything has African origin and started in Africa is called Afrocentrism. You have obviously we have so many centrisms around the world. The Europeans have their Eurocentrism. They believe that the world revolves around them, and they are at the center of the world. Now we have Afrocentrism. Yeah, please mute your mic. Now we have Afrocentrism, where Africans believe that they are the center of the world. It all started with Africa, like they claim and believe. You also have other centrisms, and Arabs at one point can perhaps talk about their history when they were the center of the world with their big civilization, and they say Arab centrism, where the focus is on that, and so on. So we have those kind of clashes of centrisms, and Afrocentrism happens to be one of them. The focus here is on Cleopatra being, before anything else and above anything else, an African queen in color, in behavior, and everything else. Again, talk about Cleopatra as Egyptian, as partly Greek, and now we talk about her as being African. So these are all different perceptions, and if anything, they tell you that the human being is more complex than we give him or her credit for. So, according to the Africans, Cleopatra is a famous figure, and they believe that she was black. And according to them, like I said, the fact that she was, denigrated down through history and presented as being playful and disruptive of households. This is all part of the European bias and prejudice. Again, if anything, the positive side of things would be that you have this intermarrying between the different cultures. She's Ptolemies, and by virtue of being Ptolemies, she is European and Greek. She is Egyptian by virtue of being a descendant of the Ptolemies who ruled Egypt for hundreds of years, and she is African because Egypt is part of Africa and all these kinds of things. Again, this is a continuation of the idea that being an African, Cleopatra became a symbol of the suppression of African heritage. And that is the end of it. So do you have any questions about Cleopatra? I'll give you perhaps 2 minutes to think and reflect on what we've been talking about Cleopatra, before we leave somewhere else. So you guys have 2 minutes to reflect and then get back to me with questions, queries.
Doctor?
Yes.
I am a little confused between the primary sources and the secondary sources. Could you make it clear? That means what are the primary sources and what are the secondary sources?
Okay, good. So primary sources are the creative material that you normally have. When you talk about poems, you know what a poem is, right? So a poem, and I'm sure you have taken poems in your previous studies. You know what poems are? شعر, قصائد.
Yes.
This is creation. This is creative writing, right? So whatever is creative is called a primary source. Whatever is written about this creative thing or creative thing is called a secondary source. Okay? So if I give you a poem and I say I want you to analyze this poem, I would like you to study this poem and write a TMA or an assignment on and about it. Okay, so you're going to go and read the poem, right? Your point of departure, the first thing that you'll do is to read the poem, right? صح?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the poem itself is your primary source. So you read the poem and you understood it, and you wanted to know more about the poem. You wanted to know more about the poet himself. You wanted to know more about the age in which the poem was written. Okay, so you don't have that in the poem itself. You would have that in articles. You would have that in books written about the poem. So whatever is written about the poem, whatever is outside the poem is called secondary source. Okay, so if we have a novel, you know what a novel is, right?
Yes.
And I am asking you to write a TMA on the novel. So would the novel, so the novel is your primary source or your secondary source?
It's a primary source.
Okay, so you read the novel, you understood it, but you wanted more. So you go and read, you go and check in libraries about articles about the novel, right? Sometimes in journals, right? So whatever is outside the novel is called secondary source. Okay?
Yes.
So in this case, the coins and whatever was on the temples of Cleopatra and the poem of Horus, right? These are all primary sources. ولا the textbook that we're reading from, this textbook that we're reading from, can you see that?
Yes.
Is that a primary or a secondary source?
Primary.
ليه؟ ليه اللي primary?
No, it is a secondary source.
Yeah, because you have articles from here and there talking about Cleopatra and about what used to happen and everything, right?
Yeah, it is a secondary source, yes.
So this is basically what the difference is. Any other questions before we leave this part? Yes or no?
I have one more question. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Cleopatra had engaged in many relationships with Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, and they attacked her on her relation with Antony, but they didn't attack her when she made a relation with Julius Caesar. Why?
Actually, they did. They did. The attack was on having affairs with both of them. But you know, Julius Caesar died, and the focus of interest is now on who is alive, who is attacking them. So obviously, Julius Caesar didn't attack his own people. Julius Caesar like I said, died very prematurely. We didn't have this tension between Julius Caesar and his people on and about Cleopatra. Perhaps he was more intelligent and more and smarter than Antony. He didn't have this kind of antagonism. He didn't have this kind of tension. So he died before, obviously, everybody knew about it. And also the fact that now we have Antony, and he is, yeah, I mean, Antony at one point would leave Rome behind and go all the way and live in Egypt. See? To go and live in Egypt and forget about the fact that you are a Roman general was a big thing for the Romans. Of course, this is what the Roman sources are telling us, but they are partly truthful in what they say about Antony. The fact that he left Rome behind. Okay? Yeah, so this is the reason why you don't feel that Julius Caesar is as much attacked as Antony is or was. Any other questions? Anyone? Everyone? Shall we move to?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, fine. So let's now move to Christopher Columbus. Did I say Christopher Columbus? I mean Christopher Marlowe, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're not doing Christopher Columbus, we're doing Marlowe, of course. Okay, so this is chapter 2. Again, it's reputations. So, and if it's reputations, and it's Christopher Marlowe, so we can come to the conclusion that we're going to also talk about the reputation of Christopher Marlowe. Okay, so it's not only Christopher Marlowe that we're having, we also have Dr. Faustus. And Dr. Faustus is obviously not a real human being. He's a creation, is one of the protagonists of, Christopher Marlowe's plays. So why do we have Dr. Faustus if the book is about real, genuine human beings? Obviously, the reason why we're having Dr. Faustus is that Dr. Faustus has many parallels with Christopher Marlowe. The two of them are related. The two of them are echoes of each other, like we're going to see. So reputations and the reputation that we're targeting this time around is that of Christopher Marlowe. So who is Christopher Marlowe? When I say Christopher Marlowe, does the name ring any bells? Hello. Have you ever heard the name Christopher Marlowe?
No.
Okay. Have you ever heard the name Dr. Faustus?
No, doctor.
Were you born yesterday ولا حاجة? Okay, طيب. We'll talk about them, and hopefully by the end of the chapter you will have known a great deal about both of them. So what is it that we're targeting this time around? What are our aims? So we mean to provide you with practice in close reading. Remember, we spoke about close reading. I don't know whether we no, we didn't. Yeah, we haven't yet spoken. Perhaps I'm talking about another course. We'll talk about close reading, and close reading means that you read in a part of a poem or a piece of work, literary work, very closely. You focus on a certain part and then you relate this certain part to whatever came before and whatever will come after. We'll talk about this. So it's some kind of analysis. It's more or less like what I normally call macro. Sorry, it's a tongue twister. Macrocosmic analysis and microcosmic analysis. When you analyze a whole poem, when you analyze a whole play, when you analyze a whole novel, this is macrocosmic analysis. When you analyze part of a poem, part of a chapter in a book, a part of a play, this is called microcosmic analysis, otherwise referred to as close reading. Okay, so this is analysis and it has levels. Okay, it has a generic level, a general level where you focus on the whole work, and you have a close level where you focus on a specific part of the work. Among our aims also would be to encourage you to think about genre. We spoke about genres before, and we said that a genre is a literary type. When I speak about literature and I say literature, and if I ask you about its different genres, you're going to tell me drama, or plays, novels, poems, essays. These are called genres. So we have a genre here that we're going to study, which is plays. We have a play, and the play is called Dr. Faustus. We'll talk about Dr. Faustus as a genre. Again, you cannot help having a genre and studying and analyzing a play without getting to know about the main themes and the main issues that the writer is trying to get across to us. Again, the whole chapter is about how to read something historically. So if we talk about history, and if there is a bit of history that we are going to engage in, it means that we'll go and connect the play to the background of the age in terms of history, in terms of politics and society. Again, we're going to read the poem biographically. Biographically means that you will need to read about the character of the author, what happened to him, what kind of life he used to lead, and because this has a bearing and this has an impact and influence on the play and the themes and the ideas and even the character. But these are some of the aims that we are kind of targeting this time around. Again, we don't want to forget or overlook the idea that whatever is done in these different chapters is inspired by the idea of reputation. That's why we have this mixture and confusion between the real and the invented, the real and the created. The real would be the author or the writer of a piece of work, and the created piece of work. Here we have this kind of confusion, this kind of intermixing. So, because we're going to talk a lot about Christopher Marlowe, the author, we're going to talk a lot about Dr. Faustus, his creation. Again, the starting point would be the author, because the author is the one who created the work. So if you're doing something biographically, you normally start with the author. So who is Christopher Marlowe? And we'll talk about him as we'll talk about the historical Marlowe, who used to live at a certain age with certain circumstances. And then we move to Christopher Marlowe, the literary talented individual, the talented individual, and how he was seen by his people. Again, the reason why we're choosing Dr. Faustus, not obviously Marlowe wrote other plays, but Dr. Faustus would stand out because of the similarities and the affinities between the protagonist, Dr. Faustus, and Marlowe himself. So Christopher Marlowe, of course, is a poet and is a dramatist, is an intellectual, but the focus with Christopher Marlowe is on his contributions to drama, the fact that he was a very important dramatist, to the extent that people say that had he lived longer, he could have even been better than Shakespeare himself. He was a contemporary to Shakespeare, which means that they used to live in the same age, and they were kind of competitors. Christopher Marlowe died very young, and this is part of the controversy around him, the fact that he didn't die a natural kind of death. He was stabbed. He was stabbed in the back, I think, while in a fight in a pub. That would tell you about Christopher Marlowe, that he wasn't that easygoing guy that you expect of him as a literary figure. Normally literary figures are known for their solitary confinement attitudes, where they live on their ivory towers. They don't mix much with people, some of them at least. They are known for their shelteredness, the fact that they keep a distance between themselves and the public. With Christopher Marlowe, it's a totally different story. Christopher Marlowe was a man of the street, a man of the people. He was politically active. He had different careers. He even on the personal level, on the personal the idea of achievements, he is very inspirational. The fact that he came from a very poor family, but he made it big in the world of literature, and the fact that he could secure a scholarship and study in one of the big universities at the time. So he is more than one thing. He again, his character is very very inspirational. I mean, so he's not a static kind of character where he is one-sided, good or bad. No, he has all of that. he is more or less like his own characters in the different plays that they have. Dynamic, active, and everything in between. So Christopher Marlowe lived a short and exceptionally turbulent life. So his life was short. He died very untimely. And he, like I said, um, came from, um, a family, a poor family, and he attended Cambridge, which is obviously a big deal. Again, you have lots of conflicting accounts of his life. At one point, people would accuse him of being a government spy. Um, Again, he would have those run-ins with the authorities. People say that he had a penchant for violence and law breaking. And even his death at the age of 29 was very mysterious. Um, People would, some people would say that he was an atheist, somebody who does not believe in Christianity or even in God. Um, and it's all of that. Whether those people were, kind of honest in their accounts or not, that's a big question. Again, don't forget that some of those who accused him of being heretical, being an atheist, being bad on all counts, were literary competitors, people who also used to write plays, but of course they were not as talented. So again, we need not to take what everybody is saying for granted. We need to do our own research and challenge sources. So one of his fellow playwrights, Thomas Kidd, accused him of holding a variety of monstrous opinions, of being intemperate, and of having a cruel heart. Obviously, his monstrous opinions are those that relate to Christianity. He said very bad things about Christ and his mom, and this is what Thomas Kidd said. Also, one of the spies, Richard Baines, informed on Marlowe, and he says that he was, kind of collaborating with the authorities and with foreign governments. And he said among the things that he said that he was heretic, atheist, impious, and scoffer. Okay, and is it all that bad about Christopher Marlowe? No. Some people are going to acknowledge his talent as a poet and as a dramatist. One of them would say that he was the best of poets in that age. Again, so the problem that we have with Christopher Marlowe is that people are not separating his personal life from his literary creation. So there is always this but. He is excellent, and he writes very beautifully and very well, but he is a spy, or he was a spy. He wrote very beautiful pieces of work, but he had those issues with the police. So people, for the most part, are confusing between Marlowe, the literary creator, and Marlowe, the rule breaker. It was only in the 19th century, in the early 19th century, with the Romantics, that people started to make this distinction between his talent and his personal life. They would simply say, listen, we have nothing to do with his personal life. He does or he did what he did. Okay? We're not interested in this part. We're interested in his talent. And we're asking the question, is he or was he talented or not? And obviously the big answer would be that he was a huge talent. So they give him the credit that he lagged, that he kind of missed and lost over the years because of his personal life. And he was canonized. Canonized means that they put him in the list of significant and important writers down through the ages. So he is now spoken about the way people are speaking about Shakespeare, for example. So he is now part of the literary canon, whether his detractors like it or not. Again, it only happened in the 19th century when the Romantics were in control of the literary scene, and the Romantics themselves had amongst them and within the ranks, literary talents who also had very questionable behavior and very questionable style of life. Some of them were atheists, some of them were anti-religion altogether. So they understood that people need to separate between personal life and talent. Again, we said that we're doing Dr. Faustus. One of Marlowe's literary creations, because it is the most, the closest to Marlowe himself in terms of, character, the main character, Dr. Faustus, who is very similar to Marlowe, and also in terms of what happened during Dr. Faustus' life as a literary creation. So there is a great deal of correspondence between Marlowe, the creator, and Dr. Faustus, the creation. So what's the main idea? So what's happening in Dr. Faustus? We're now talking about Dr. Faustus, the play. So Dr. Faustus is the most famous of Marlowe's plays, and its hero, who sells his soul to the devil in return for 24 years of power and pleasure, is by far the best known of his rebellious protagonists. So Christopher Marlowe was rebellious himself. Rebellious means he was anti-everything. He was anti-government, he was anti-religion. Okay? Dr. Faustus was also like that. As we're going to see, he is also rebellious. He was not happy with the knowledge that he has, and obviously he had big amounts of knowledge. He mastered all the kinds of knowledge available, all the sciences available, theology, medicine, law, but he wasn't happy. He wanted more, and he wanted more, and he wanted more. So he would think of himself as more than just a human being. He wanted to be a demigod, a god on earth. And this is, of course, rebellion against God. Does it remind us of anybody? Yes, it reminds us of Marlowe, who is also somebody who believes that human beings have potential, and obviously traditional religions are restricting and limiting them. So the two persons, Marlowe and his creation, are rebellious, and perhaps this is the reason why we're putting them in the same chapter. Again, the main idea of Dr. Faustus, the play, is that we have a hero, a protagonist, who sells his soul to the devil. So it's a transaction that we're having between the devil and Dr. Faustus. In return for what? So what are the terms of this kind of transaction? Okay, the devil is going to provide Dr. Faustus with absolute pleasure, absolute power, absolute knowledge. And this is going to be limited to 24 years. You will have 24 years of absolute everything. But when the 24 years are over, you will give me your soul and I'll throw it into hellfire. You will be damned. You will be no more. You, of course, you will fall out of favor with God and you will be damned. So what do you think of this transaction? Would you do it? 24 years of absolute everything, absolute power, absolute pleasure, absolute knowledge. Would you do it? You wouldn't, right? Who would? None, right?
Yeah, Doctor.
Okay. So Dr. Faustus was foolish, obviously. And this is a foolish act. So the 24 years are going to come to an end, and sooner or later, right? And the price is very heavy and very, so you'll be damned. You go to hell.
Doctor,
Yes.
is he a fictional character?
You have what? We have what?
No, I'm asking if he's a fictional character.
Dr. Faustus is, yes. Dr. Faustus is a fictional character, yes. But you can find people who are like Dr. Faustus in life,
Yeah.
doing stuff against religion, doing stuff that religion is telling you not to do is more or less like being like Faustus, more or less, right? Because eventually we will die and will be taken to task. And God is going to ask us what we did and what we didn't, what we should have done and what we shouldn't have done, right? Okay, طيب. This is a typical Elizabethan habit. Marlowe and Shakespeare belong to the Elizabethan age. And when we talk about the Elizabethan age, we talk about the period when Queen Elizabeth I was the ruler. This was late 16th century and early and mid 17th century. So at the time, to write a play to write a play did not need you or require you to be original when it comes to the plot or to the story. Originality was not very important. Originality means that you come up with your own story, a story from your own mind. No, it was fine. You can have a plot, or a story that you heard or read, and you can use it. So this was not plagiarism. Plagiarism Okay, forget about plagiarism. This was not plagiarism. Having a plot that is similar to the plot of somebody else is okay. The real originality, the real contribution has to do with how you're going to handle the plot. From which angle of vision are you going to approach the plot so that you can make it different from the original plot? Okay? So Marlowe based his plot, which is obviously not original, on the history of the damnable life and deserved death of Dr. John Faustus, which is an English translation of a German book. Okay? So there was a book at the time, a translated one, translated from German, I'm sorry, from German literature, obviously. And it was about a guy who also did just that. He also had this pact with the devil, or this deal with the So the plot wasn't very original, like I said. So why? Why, of all the available plots, why would Marlowe choose the story of somebody who is rebelling against God and who is having this deal or pact? Fall in love with each other and they meet difficulties and challenges because of the parents, and then finally they overcome these challenges. This is Christopher Marlowe. This is what we read about him. That he himself has this rebellious streak to his character. He has this rebellious nature. He himself was rebellious. He himself was against religion. Right? Again, people are also polarized and divided over what Marlowe's aims were in presenting a play like this. So people are saying this is part of his nature. He himself was rebellious, was anti-religion. And some other people are saying, yeah, perhaps he's giving us a moral lesson. Perhaps he's trying to tell us as readers, look, this is the fate and the destiny of whoever thinks of going against the dictates of God. See? I think I'll stop on this note and with this item. Do you guys have any questions? Hello.
For me, no.
Okay.
No, doctor, thanks.
Right, like I said, we're going to stop on this note and with this item, and I'll see you inshallah next week. Don't forget that we have a quiz coming up on Thursday at 8:15. All the details are posted on the LMS on the course page. Okay, multiple choice questions. The questions are all on Cleopatra, and they are easy. Yalla, good luck, and I'll see you next week, inshallah. Bye bye.
يعطيك العافية.
مع السلامة. Bye bye.